Alright, so, taking a look at our journal here, we have racked up a ton of quests. And so, I think it's about time we start knocking some of these ones off. Some of them may be relatively minor things, but we did get the Cerberus Lab Quest very, very early on. Actually, as soon as we got onto the Normandy, before we even went over to Paladin, this was pretty much the only side quest that we were able to do. We delayed, but I think it is now a good time to make this happen. So Alliance has discovered a new Cerberus laboratory located on Sanctum. Investigate the lab and deal with any potential threat. Okay. That sounds good to me. It was the one that Specialist Trainer told us about very early on. So we also, of course, have acquired some new teammates as of late, so this might be a good time to test some things out with those teammates. Okay, so of course, one of those teammates being Javik, who we got on Eden Prime here. We have recovered all assets here, but one thing we've not done a lot of thus far is general exploration. And so I'm wondering if maybe we take just a second here to head on over to Asgard and see if we can find anything over there and do some scanning. Let's see, where is it? Exactly, hold on. You tell me, you suggest that it is over here to the right, and then I look to the right and I don't see anything, and it looks like it is not going anywhere to the right, but I mean, we'll try. There it is, okay. There it is. So this works similarly to Mass Effect 2 when we were traveling in between systems in the same cluster. That's where we'll just be driving with the Normandy, and when we're doing that, we spend some fuel. So we do need to be a little bit careful of that. And for the first time, perhaps, thus far in our playthrough, we talked about this a little bit, but we can scan here, except if we do scan, we have the chance of some other things happening, which we may be about to see. So let's try to scan in the general area of these two planets.
Signal confirmed.
Okay, because as you see there, Reaper Alertness in the bottom left corner goes up as soon as we scan. It's pretty high after just a single scan, so that's a little alarming. Let's recover some of these assets now. We have wreckage, which will give us some fuel, and of course we spent some fuel to get here, so that helps refund that. We also have Tyr over here, which we can enter the orbit of. And let's see, Tyr is compositionally similar to Earth. However, it lies over 4 AU from Asgard and possesses an atmosphere primarily composed of nitrogen and ethane. While a potential target for terraforming, the proximity of the Shirt Sleeves habitable Terra Nova relegated Tyr to a support role. So basically, there's a better world closer by. Nearly 100 corporations, human and alien constructed teleoperated mining, refining, and manufacturing facilities across the planet. The Reapers immediately targeted these, seeking to cut off the Alliance's supply of hydrogen fuel cells. Okay, but there is a colony there. 44,000, not huge by any means, but it exists. The temperature is it's pretty low. It's pretty cold. Minus 73 degrees Celsius. I mean, other than that, close to Earth-like gravity, close to Earth-like atmospheric pressure, so I suppose that might be the reason why. So let's start our scanner. And so this, we can check out. Let's see. There we go. Lost and found. We've acquired a war asset, Alliance Naval Exploration Flotilla. Okay. So that is one of the things we can get from scanning planets is war assets, such as those, in addition to some other things, potentially. Let's see, we've recovered 40% of the assets here. There's a strange number that would suggest there are 5 things in this system, and we just looked at 1? So how did that go up by 20%? I'm not sure. But anyways, let's check out Bohr next. Bohr is a hydrogen-helium gas giant with over 90 moons. Light of ionized hydrogen filtering through the upper cloud deck of sodium causes its striking coloration. The source of ionization has not yet been confirmed, but Bohr's mass, equal to 6 Jupiters, and high temperature suggest it may be a brown dwarf, a gas giant that gained almost enough mass to ignite into a small star. Reapers destroyed Bohr's extensive helium-3 infrastructure, although wreckage indicates that the Sixth Fleet did not give up the planet without a fight. Okay, well, let's start our scanner. And we have something over here. And another lost and found remains of Reaper destroyer. Some intel there. Okay, that's very interesting. So now, if we leave that planet, we see we have discovered 60% of the stuffs in this area. There are 2 planets here, Loki and Terra Nova, that we've not yet explored. What if we just check this out a little bit here? Loki. Now, I'm not sure if we ever get the chance to scan a planet if we do not use our scanner like we did to find the stuff on the other planets. So, I'm not sure there's a workaround in that way. Loki is a small terrestrial world with little to recommend it. Loki's one hemosphere is largely covered by ice, and the other by craggy, basaltic highlands. The rough, varied terrain suggests an ancient cataclysm caused significant damage to the planet. Reaching 6.5 AU at Perigee and 7.1 AU at Apogee, Loki's unusual elliptical orbit reinforces this hypothesis. So basically, its orbit is nowhere near circular. Beneath Loki's ice caps runs a naturally formed network of subterranean tunnels. These may have proven useful to Alliance forces in retreat. Nevertheless, any organics hidden here remain in peril as Loki's atmosphere is inhospitable and Reaper scanning technology is efficient. So maybe something living under the surface in those tunnels, but hard to say definitively. So yeah, we can try seeing if we find anything here on Terra Nova, but I suspect that the deal is we would find something at Terra Nova and we would find something over here at Loki if we were to use our scanner, but given the whole Reaper alertness scale here, there's reason to be cautious when it comes to launching digital scans. Maybe I'll do it just to show you what happens when you do fill that meter, but let's check out Terra Nova first. Yeah, and no option to scan it, so I think that does mean that you truly do need to manually scan it outside of this zoom in on the planet, and that is what triggers the Reaper's attention. So let's see, Terra Nova was one of the Class 1 colonization prospects discovered by the first wave of Alliance surveys in 2150. It was the second human extrasolar colony. So, okay, humans have been here and they got here very early, or at least by human standards, and the first beyond the Charon mass relay. It once boasted the highest population of any formally endorsed Alliance colony, but in recent years, threats of Batarian attack caused many to emigrate. The name Exodus Cluster became all too apt. Oh, everyone was leaving it? Okay. The Reapers landed on Terra Nova after a brief battle with the Alliance's 6th Fleet. Aware that it would lose, the fleet retreated in hopes of meeting with allies and retaking the planet. Intelligence indicates that the Reaper force here is light, and debate rages over whether to try to liberate the planet, or if such an effort would prove futile if the Reaper sent reinforcements. So the population is, estimated pre-invasion, but I'm a little surprised it isn't higher than that, to tell you the truth. 4.15 million. If this was, at one point in time, the most significant colony of all the humans, I mean, I feel like we've definitely seen higher numbers than that in the past. But, let's see, so why is it so intriguing? Atmospheric pressure, very close to that of Earth, a little bit lighter, a little bit thinner. Gravity, a little bit less than that of Earth. Surface temperature, it's a little hot. It's quite hot. But, I mean, it's, with some strong air conditioning, you can probably still make it work. Alright, so, tell you what, let's exit briefly here before we do the scan. Because what I want to do here is I want to save, just in case, because we are going to tempt fate just a little bit. So I want to show you what happens if you fill that meter of Reaper alertness. So let's just say that, yes, it definitely is a risk. It is definitely something that you would generally like to avoid doing whenever possible, but we are deliberately going to make it happen just to see what happens when you go that route. So here goes nothing. The Reapers they now know we're here. They now know we're here, for what it's worth. What's up, Exlo? How's it going? We're just getting the Reapers mad at us. No big deal. So we've read about Loki, but we can now scan it. And when we are scanning it, we will find something over here. That being something. Another lost and found. Alliance Spec Ops Team Delta. So more war assets, that's great. Now, I'm going to exit out of this zoom in here on Loki. And as soon as we do, we need to run as fast as we possibly can. You'll see why. Because there are Reapers chasing us.
Successful.
So, fortunately, I mean, I deliberately ran as quickly as possible, so you might not have had much time to see it, but there was, in fact, a Reaper right on top of us that was trying to chase us, and the Reapers, whenever you do fill up that Reaper alertness meter, the Reapers will start to swarm your position. They will quite literally enter the system. Usually several Reapers do so, and they try to close in on you, chase you down. They start slow, then they will accelerate over time. So initially they are slower than the Normandy, but eventually they will actually become faster than the Normandy. And if you do not leave in time, if they actually reach you, then, well, it's game over. Just taking a break from doing some Mass Effect challenge stuff and doing some speed running, some Dragon Age Origins. Nice. How's it going? How are you liking it? Have you played? I take it if you're speed running it, you've probably played it before. So yeah, Asgard is still 80%. So we do have one more thing that we would theoretically like to scan, that presumably being the one planet we have not yet scanned. But let's head out, because what you see is, well, obviously there's Reaper presence here, so that is sort of our warning. But other than that, what I'd like to do is, let's see, let's actually take a look at our journal here, because I was thinking we would go for the Cerberus Lab. And where exactly is that? Sanctum? Where exactly is Sanctum, though? Okay, but sure. In Mass Effect 2, we got all of the pop-ups. Actually, is there a fueling station here? We did spend some fuel on our way over to the other system. Doesn't look like it, but yeah, in Mass Effect 2, it was really nice how whenever you looked at the galaxy like this, you would see, okay, yes, side quests do show up as well whenever we hover over a specific cluster. Just the main quests are hovering, or are showing up even when we are not looking at that specific location. So if we're looking for Sanctum, we're just going to need to hunt down the specific spot. Like, rescue students is not the one in question. Over here, Cerberus Lab. Sigurd's Cradle, okay. So it's over here in that case. So let's head over. And we did, in fact, get an achievement for escaping the Reapers there. So that is one thing we can try to make a point of doing. Okay, so now we're in the Skepsis system. Decorus is where the actual Cerberus Lab is. So I believe there were Reapers stationed here as well, which means that we could find ourselves in a similar situation if we're not careful, with Reapers chasing us out of this cluster as well. There's a lot of planets right here. If we could get them all, that'd be lovely. Oh. I was about to say, notably, no Reaper alertness. Now, Reaper alertness does increase at a different level depending on how many Reapers are in the area. And so you saw we did one scan in the other area and our meter almost entirely filled, whereas this time it practically moved, barely moved at all. So let's see, we have Watson and Franklin over here. I think we had a mission on one of these two planets in Mass Effect 1, or Franklin being the moon, but let's check out Watson first. Let's see, so Watson is known in human media for two things: its spectacular tides brought on by a large moon, and the bureaucratic snafu over which Earth nations got to settle there first. Watson is a garden world, first discovered in 2165 CE, with credit claimed by the Chinese People's Federation, the United North American States, and the European Union. The Systems Alliance brokered the infamous Reykjavik Compromise, allowing limited colonization from each coalition in cities comprised of populations from each nation. So they basically split it up between the North American states, the European Union, and the Chinese People's Federation. Watson itself trends colder than Earth, with a temperate zone measuring about 30 degrees latitude in either direction from the equator. Its life does not easily map to Earth's evolutionary eras. Some islands have species that resemble terrestrial placental mammals, others are overrun by arthropods. No thanks. It is estimated that at least 2 more generations of xenozoologists will be needed to properly classify all the species of the planet. Okay. Yeah, it is cold. It is definitely cold. It's, I mean, 25 degrees Celsius in the habitable zone is certainly not bad, but otherwise, I'd rather not be in negative 18. Okay, let's scan this place and see what we can find. And in this case, more progress toward the Lost and Found achievement and another war asset, Javelin missile launchers. Is this the place? Was it Mass Effect 2? Where we had the Javelin missiles launched mission? I mean, that was definitely a mission in Mass Effect 2. I just don't remember if that's why I'm remembering specifically the Watson and Franklin area. Perhaps? I mean, that'd be either ironic or fitting. Maybe fitting, more so, if that is in fact to get Javelin missiles on the planet where you had done the Javelin missiles launched mission in the previous Mass Effect. It'd make a lot of sense. But, let's see. Other than that, there are, of course, other planets here. I tried to set up our scanner so that we would hit all of these areas here with just one go. So I don't think there's going to be anything there. Generally speaking, we're going to want to use our scanner on planets, or if there's any obvious rubble or things like that elsewhere in a system. So let's just read up on Franklin and these other places as well while we're at it. Franklin, a large moon, retains a trace atmosphere of carbon dioxide, but its desolate surface holds no signs of water or life. In order to defend Watson from the pirates of the Terminus systems, right, this area is right in the middle of the Terminus systems, which is the dangerous area of the galaxy, if you are new to Mass Effect, is basically sort of like the northern, almost the entire northern half of the galaxy, if you were to just sort of treat it like a compass. So, Franklin is home to 2 Alliance spaceports and naval bases capable of fielding 6 fighter squadrons each, and a classified number of interplanetary ballistic missiles. Mass Effect fields keep the gravity in its installations at a comfortable level for long-term living. Okay, but again, no scans there. Darwin. It's all named after important scientists. A mid-sized rock planet, Darwin is ironically named, being one of the worst places for life in the galaxy. Its atmosphere is punishing, with temperatures boiling, its chemical makeup toxic. Carbon monoxide and methane wrap the planet in an unyielding haze, and scans of its surface show only silicates and molten tin. Its daily thermal fluctuations lead to hurricane-level vortices, 2 at each pole, forming eyes that can be seen from orbit. Despite all this, Darwin is still used by spacers as a drive core discharge point. Hydrogen pierces the clouds in the upper atmosphere, making for a relatively benign approach. Yeah? Whew. Look at that atmospheric pressure. 112 atmospheres? That might be the highest we've ever seen in any of the Mass Effect games. I mean, that is quite literally 112 times the atmospheric pressure of Earth. So if you were to go there, you would just immediately get crushed. Temperature, it's 710 degrees Celsius, probably because it has an extremely thick atmosphere. Gravity's not so bad, though. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, then we have Crick, another famous scientist. Known for its spectacular geysers that can be seen from orbit, Crick is a rock planet with expansive, frozen oceans. Though it is within the temperate and pressure range for human habitation, its thick atmosphere is largely carbon dioxide and monoxide, making breath masks or environmental suits mandatory. The most abundant resources for exploitation are the potassium salts found in its seabeds, which fetch good prices on terraforming worlds. And yeah, negative 32 degrees Celsius is certainly unpleasant. Perhaps with the proper equipment, it's not unlivable, but understandably not a top priority. Okay, so we've only found 50% of the stuffs over here. And you can see we've partially filled our Reaper Alertness meter. And these arrows indicate the direction from which the Reapers are expected to arrive. Basically, again, the more arrows, and therefore the more Reapers, the more quickly this bar is going to get filled. So it seems like there's only 2 in this area. So that gives us reason to believe that we should be able to launch a few more scans before those Reapers arrive. So, like, I'm not exactly sure how big our scan radius is. Can we manage to get both these guys simultaneously? Are we going to miss them both if we try to go right down the middle like this? I think we have enough leeway here with our alertness that we can just get closer to this one and make sure that we get it. Okay. Halfway full. No, definitely hit this planet, but didn't see anything there. Nothing there. That's not good. That's not good. Where is this other thing then? Were we not close enough, maybe? To either Darwin or more so Crick when we made our previous scan? Perhaps. Now, we are planning to make our move toward Decoy, and technically speaking, the way it works is whenever you do fully alert the Reapers to your presence in an area and they start chasing you down, they will remain in that area until you complete a mission. I believe any mission will reset it. There's a chance that side quests do not. But of course, we are planning to head out in this direction and do a side quest, and so we might be able to test that theory. So let's try it. Oh, here it is. And not sure if the Reapers caught us. Okay, we have recovered from some fuel. Wreckage of a fuel depot destroyed by enemy forces. Fuel can be salvaged from the debris. Okay, are the Reapers about to chase us down? Perhaps. Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Well, we've explored that 100% in the Skepsis area, so now let's go to Decoy to check out this Cerberus Lab. And we needed the fuel, as it turns out, by the looks of things. So here is Sanctum. And one thing to bear in mind is whenever there is a mission in a system, and we've said this before, but now that we've seen the Reaper show up, it's perhaps a little more relevant or a little more easy to contextualize. If there is a mission in the system, and there is, because we're looking at Cerberus Lab right there, that means that the Reapers will never show up here.
Signal confirmed.
And there is something here at Laena. Let's see what the deal is. So Laena, cloaked, is a methane-clouded hothouse planet. Its lack of a metal-rich core and significant magnetosphere allows for an easy scan, which reveals mining equipment on its surface. It can be deduced that this mining occurred within the last 5 years. Any longer, and the machines would have been worn down to nothing by the excessive heat and dust storms of hot iron oxide. Okay, yeah, I mean, super thick atmospheric pressure, not as thick as what we've seen previously, but also very hot as well, so makes sense, but there is something here. Let's track it down. More lost. Oh, credits that time. Lost and found. Credits recovered. Okay, some salvage. So that's also a possibility. We've seen a lot of war assets. Now, credits for perhaps the first time. And if we jump out of here, we'll see 50% of assets recovered. Now, I mean, obviously, there's something here on Sanctum. Oh, actually, well, I mean, that's the mission, but there's something entirely different over here. This time, it's more fuel. So, I mean, we did spend a fair bit of fuel to get here, so that's usable. It's not bad. One thing before we actually jump into this mission here at Sanctum, let's exit just because I would like to show you. Since we have now...
When we were there on leave, you'd never know there was a war on. You'll know soon enough. All those refugees have to go somewhere.
I suppose that is true. Talking about refugees at the Citadel, but what I want to do is I just want to show you real quick at the war room, now that we've picked up some additional war assets, our numbers here should be starting to change a little bit more, because yep, we're seeing new. So let's maybe start with Alliance. That is the place where we started. We originally had only Alliance war assets. So does it show us specifically what's new within this group? It does. Okay, so it was Alliance Spec Ops Team Delta. Half of Team Delta's officers have an N5 designation. N7 is, of course, Shepard's ranking. N is basically the Special Forces, and then 1 being the lowest, and you go up and up as you gain a higher ranking, and so 7 is the top, so 5 and 6 is not bad. So half of Team Delta's officers have an N5 designation, with a few N6 soldiers in their ranks. They specialize in conflicts outside Citadel space. Delta is known for strict admission standards, professionalism on high-stakes missions, and the Alliance's loudest parties. When asked how senior staff looks at their off-duty rowdiness, Captain Matthew Brown was quoted saying, "After the stuff we went through in the Terminus systems, they're just happy we're not burning down the base." Okay, and we also found Alliance Naval Exploration Flotilla, and I believe these are all things that we just found from scanning, which, as you can see here, 35 is a pretty high number. I mean, many of these things are stuff that we just automatically start with, so they're you're going to have a decently high number to begin with, whereas individual things that are worth 35 is pretty big. 75 is actually huge. In peacetime, the Alliance Naval Exploration Flotilla is used as a survey force to chart out new systems. The NEF came under fire in 2185, when several dozen service people were charged with withholding information on rich mining deposits in order to sell the locations to the exploration firm Varia Frontiers. Alliance attempted to hide the controversy to little avail, as more and more officers were indicted. Eager to bury its shady history, the NEF dedicated its entire flotilla and material resources to constructing the Crucible. So that sounds good. Then Alliance 5th Fleet is also new to us. I don't remember exactly how we got this, because, I mean, at 95, this is huge. The 5th Fleet became famous across the galaxy after spearheading Alliance forces at the Battle of the Citadel. It was guarding Arcturus Station when the Reapers attacked. After a bloody and desperate battle, Admiral Hackett gave the orders to retreat, sacrificing the entirety of the Alliance 2nd Fleet to give the 3rd and 5th Fleet the chance to escape. Oh, this is actually... I think this is something that gets affected by your decision at the end of Mass Effect 1, for what it's worth. So remember that we basically spared much of our fleet by allowing the council members to die. So yeah, that may have happened. So the 5th Fleet's engineers are busy repairing its damaged vessels, grimly anticipating a return to Earth and revenge against the Reapers. Updated. A pair of entrepreneurs was persuaded to switch from creating financial programs to advance weapon-targeting VIs, and to sell them to the Alliance just above cost. This was the group of people that we met, I think it was, a Turian and a Solarian on the Citadel, who were arguing about some stuff, and we convinced them to, rather than just gouge their customers for profits, help out the military in the war against the Reapers, and so we got some additional war assets from that. So that's what that came from. Diana Ullers, of course, we have currently on the Normandy. Alliance News Network reporter Diana Ullers has been broadcasting from Normandy, interviewing crew members and high-ranking Alliance officers to give the galaxy an insider's view of the war. Normandy, I think we've looked at that already. Mineral resources, we've definitely seen that. I think we did look at Al-Jalani, the reporter that we punched on one occasion, does give you 10 points if you've never punched her throughout the entirety of your Mass Effect playthrough. Obviously, we did punch her once, so just 5. But Eden Prime support as well. This, of course, coming after we did the Eden Prime mission, in which we got Javik. So Eden Prime is an agrarian world producing millions of tons of food that is sold to less arable planets. The Alliance has set up supply lines from this colony to funnel excess provisions to its troops. A few researchers who studied protein technology on Eden Prime avoided capture by Cerberus, because remember, we basically found a bunch of details while we were on the Eden Prime mission about what Cerberus was planning to do in their attack on the planet, and so by forwarding that information to the colonists on Eden Prime, we were able to give them the info to either escape or just fend off Cerberus altogether. They forwarded copies of their work to Alliance, hoping it can help build the protein device found on Mars. Although its military defenses were seriously damaged by the Cerberus invasion, Eden Prime's remaining government has loaned the Alliance several Athabasca-class supply freighters. Not bad. That helps too. And then Eden Prime's colonists drove Cerberus away from their system entirely. With its shipping lanes secure, the colony is sending out as many supplies and equipment as it can spare. So basically, this number goes up depending on how many of those things you find on the Eden Prime mission, so that sounds good. With the Crucible itself, completing the Crucible device will require entire systems of resources and skilled workers, as well as the galaxy's brightest scientists. This is the protein device that we found on Mars that we just heard reference to, that we are still very much in the early stages of trying to understand, let alone design and build. And, apparently the Javelin missile launchers fall under this category. So developed by the Alliance, Javelin missiles release dark energy upon impact. This creates devastating space-time disruptions, magnified warp fields that strip away a target's molecular bonds. Even the strongest kinetic barriers will eventually collapse after multiple impacts from these rockets. Alliance R&D commandeered several colony factories, and now produces enough Javelin missile launchers for all dreadnoughts in the Allied fleet. And this is another thing that we got just from scanning a planet, and so getting 50 war assets from scanning a planet, pretty good deal. Then protein data files. Is this something else we got from scanning planets? These protein disks were found years ago on Eden Prime. No, on Eden Prime, okay. Recovered a few months before the discovery of the Prothean beacon in 2183. No, that must not have been us then. Or at least not on our mission, because it's currently the year 2185. For years, the data on the disks was incomprehensible until the Crucible's blueprints provided the key to understanding the equations. Locked inside the disks were theories on dark matter meant to be used with the Crucible's main power source. We talked about this a little bit in Mass Effect 2 during the mission on Haestrom, in which we recruited Tali, how there's technically, once upon a time, there was rumor of a totally different ending to the series that was more involved with dark matter. And so seeing several references here to dark matter does make me wonder if perhaps this was going to be another way in which that dark matter angle was going to get worked into the story. But, I mean, we'll see, of course, how things play out. I won't go into any greater detail to avoid spoilers, but that is interesting. That is interesting. And then finally we have an update on alien, or at least the category alien races that were once content to stay on the fringes of galactic politics are now stepping up to provide whatever is needed to win this war. So the Terminus Fleet, which probably came from something that we just scanned from a planet since we are currently in the Terminus systems. So the Terminus Fleet is an assortment of mercenary vessels and pirate ships bound together by little more than common geography and a fear of the Reapers. Despite this volatile mix, the fleet seems to be functioning as one under the leadership of criminal warlord Arya T'Loak. Okay. So Arya lending us a bit of a helping hand there. So that is the latest on our war assets here. Do we have anything new with Primarch Victus? Maybe we just double check real quick.
Yes, Commander.
I feel like we probably checked all the... Yeah, I think we asked him about all these things.
That's all.
Of course, Commander.
Okay. So, let us head back then. Just wanted to check in to see what all of the updates we were seeing when we were doing those planet scans were actually leading to when it comes to the war assets, because at the end of the day, that's what counts. Okay, so now let's hop back into the galaxy map, because here we can take a look at Sanctum, which is the place where we are looking to do this Cerberus Lab mission. So we are ready to go here on, we're 100% assets recovered, so yeah, this is all we have left. So let's land, let's get going. Okay, so for the first time ever, we now have the option of choosing some new teammates here. Javik being the latest addition, but Edie is also new and we've not yet used her. We had Garrus briefly on Palavin, but have not had much time to use him here. So, I mean, in terms of what we are planning to go up against here, I think for the most part it is a Cerberus Lab, so we're probably expecting to run into Cerberus enemies. So there's that, but that tends to mean shields is one of their top forms of defenses, and when it comes to going against shields, that means people with abilities like Overload, for example, and I'm not sure we've looked at Edie's abilities yet, or Javik's for that matter, because we, like I said, not yet used her, but Incinerate, good against armor, Overload, good against shields, we've seen both of those abilities before. Defense Matrix is new in Mass Effect 3, as is Decoy, and Unshackled AI is her passive. Then, so that's Edie. For Javik, we have Dark Channel, a biotic ability that is new to Mass Effect 3. Lift Grenade, pretty sure that's new to Mass Effect 3. Biotically powered grenades. Pull, which we have on Shepard, and Slam, which we saw in Mass Effect 2 as the loyalty power for Miranda, and then Vengeful Ancient is his passive. So, okay. I mean, on one hand, it would be kind of cool to take both of our new characters here. Not necessarily sure they are the best for this specific matchup, but don't think it's going to be the most difficult thing out there, so maybe we just give it a shot here with these two. I mean, Edie does have the Overload, which will definitely be helpful against shields, so we'll make it work. Okay, then when it comes to weapons, so we have recently acquired the Acolyte. That is likely to be our long-term weapon for Shepard. I mean, we could see if we have any additional modifications we want to make, but no, this is the best set of upgrades for that. So keep the Acolyte. We still only have the Shuriken for SMGs, so guess we're sticking with that then. As for other people's, so Edie is the classes in Mass Effect 3, the lines do get blurred a little bit more than they were, certainly in Mass Effect 1, where it was very cut and dry. Mass Effect 2 did blur the lines a little bit as well. The closest thing you could equate Edie to would probably be an engineer, and perhaps for that reason, we see that she only has access to SMGs and pistols, so not the best when it comes to pure weapon-based stuffs. And so for her, I mean, it's either the Predator or the Acolyte in the pistol slot. I guess we'll go Acolyte. It is good against shields, so it does make some sense for that purpose against a shield-heavy opponent. Pistol magazine upgrade, why not? The armor piercing does not do anything for the Acolyte because it is a projectile-based weapon, so that means we'll go power amplifier, and that certainly works well for Edie, who is a power-based character. Then the Shuriken, as we were saying, is our only SMG, so we don't really have any option but to put this on. And the ultralight materials doesn't really help for squad mates, but we'll put it on because why not? It's our only other upgrade. Then let's lock this in for Javik. Javik, again, the line gets blurred a little bit with the classes in Mass Effect 3. You could make the case he's an adept. You could also make the case he's a vanguard. Sort of blurs the line a little bit between those two. He does have an assault rifle and a heavy pistol. So the pistol, I mean, again, I guess we'll just put it on the Acolyte because we can. And it is probably still preferable to the Predator. But for him, the assault rifle is probably key. And we did just pick up the particle rifle, which we automatically got at the completion of the Eden Prime mission, and this immediately becomes our best assault rifle. It is quite good, especially if you can combine it with some ammo effects. Now, we are not gonna have any with this team, which is a little bit unfortunate, but again, we're just kind of force-feeding a little bit, trying out the new characters. What's up, Touchy No Touchy? How's it going? Did I put it on the other Acolyte? If so, then it was not intended. If so, then it was not intended. We have assault rifle piercing mod for the... I think it works for particle rifle. I'm not 100% sure, to tell you the truth, because it is kind of funky the way that it works. Actually, why don't we read up a little bit on it here, because it is a little out of the ordinary. After the Reapers obliterated the Prothean Empire's warships, the Prothean Resistance was forced to develop weapons that did not rely on intact supply lines. The Prothean particle rifle is a stripped-down, powerful assault rifle modified to fire without thermal clips or specialized ammunition, and that's why I'm saying it does work a little bit differently than some weapons, and so I'm not 100% sure if the piercing works on it. I don't remember. Alliance scientists agree that it appears to share some principles with the Collector's particle beam weapon that we used back in Mass Effect 2, although this gun requires a temporary cooldown period if it overheats. An amalgam of two different eras of technology, the particle rifle is still a deadly efficient weapon. So, okay. I mean, we only have 2 mods, so I guess we might as well put on the armor-piercing mod, and then the assault rifle magazine upgrade. Also, because of the nature of this weapon, might actually do nothing, because it functions, actually, basically functions like a weapon from Mass Effect 1. If you remember, firing those, eventually using it will fill in a heat meter, and if you use it too much, the weapon will overheat, then you need to reload. Otherwise, you can keep on firing it, and you're never going to run out of ammunition, and so, for that reason, I'm not 100% sure if it works there. Oh, I accidentally pressed the back button. So, Shepard will be using the pistol armor-piercing mod, if in fact we did accidentally put it on, but, so be it. I think this will be a relatively short mission, and, you know, as long as we had the power amplifier, I hope we had that as one of our pistol mods. You know, the other one being the just extra thermal clips, which is not the end of the world if we missed out on that. We have 5 points here for Shepard. We could put that into cluster grenade. We have just enough to do that, if we would like. Or we can go to biotic mastery, which could give us more power damage. Damage and force. Oh no, that's duration rather. Duration and reputation, or damage and force. That's an option. Alternatively, we could also do melee damage. Is definitely not the best short term, at least for us. Although eventually we will want to go further down to get some more lives. Okay, so I suppose we'll do cluster grenade. Well, how high priority is it really? Yeah, the magazines don't work on alternate ammo type weapons. That makes sense. That makes sense. So I don't think it's going to work on the particle rifle in that case. Yeah, actually, in hindsight, or on second thought, I think we might actually want to go with the biotic mastery here first, just because I think, although it is nice to have the grenades upgraded pretty heavily for burst damage, it's just, I think it's mostly a luxury. It's not something we're going to be relying too heavily on all that often. So why don't we go with this? I mean, it's certainly better in the short term than the melee damage. So it's just a matter of, do we prefer the duration and reputation, or do we prefer the damage? And I think what I was planning for this one was for, how about we go, I think we go reputation and duration, because we're primarily getting our damage from biotic combos, and this does not affect biotic combo damage. It only affects upfront damage. So, I mean, you could make a case for either for sure, but the reputation is also kind of nice. All right, so that's Shepard. We have a whole lot to do for Javik and for Edie, though, because this is our first time using them after having just unlocked them. So much biotic. Yeah, that's the thing. We are an adept, so we're going to have a lot of biotics. Javik is also a very, very biotics-heavy character, and that's why we do need to be a little bit mindful of when we are using him, because, I mean, there are some things that biotics are great against. There are other things that biotics are not so good against, notably shields. And what does the enemy we're about to go against have a lot of? Shields. And that's why I was saying, maybe not necessarily the preferred matchup for this specific mission, but I'm hoping that this one is not going to be that difficult nonetheless. As for Javik, though, let's take a look at some of his abilities that we are just seeing for the first time here, notably Dark Channel, which is a biotic power. It plagues an opponent with a persistent, damaging biotic field. Effects transfers to a second target if the first is killed. Effects length depends on Dark Channel's duration. Only one field may be active at a time. So basically, it is a very long duration, namely 30-second duration, damage over time skill. If it kills the first target, then it will jump to the next target, and it will just keep on jumping and jumping until it runs out of duration, and it will go for a while because of that long duration. So at first, its damage may not seem all that impressive, just 25, but he already has the first level. If we upgrade it further, I mean, the recharge speed is not going to be that meaningful when it has such a long duration, so not too worried about that. But I think this is going to be one of Javik's key skills, so we are probably going to want to prioritize upgrading that a lot. We're probably also going to want to upgrade... let's see, maybe the question is more so, what do we not want to upgrade as much? Pull is not all that important. It is nice for helping take care of Guardians and their shields, but other than that, it's largely going to be an inferior skill, because it is purely a primer and it doesn't have a lot else going for it. Javik, for the most part, is going to be a biotic detonator, so that is something to bear in mind. So yeah, I think Dark Channel being the exception there, this does prime. So yeah, let's go all in on Dark Channel to lead things off here. I think this is a good starting point for Javik. So yeah, the recharge speed, not a huge deal, because the duration is already longer than the recharge speed. Damage per second, definitely. That is very nice to have. Then, other than that, next we have the option to go either more damage or even more duration. I mean, 30 seconds is crazy long already, and because there's the recharge speed that is faster than the duration, there's really no need to go duration here. So in that case, let's just pour on more damage. Then we can go slow, or we can go recharge speed, and again, recharge speed just doesn't make a lot of sense given the crazy long duration. So might as well slow the target's movement by 30%, so giving them a debuff. Then lastly, we can go 50% damage, which is a lot, or we can go 75% damage against specifically armor and barriers. So a little more specialized in this case, but more damage when it does go against that specialized type of defenses. And so, what does this not include? It does not include, so yeah, why would you ever not take this? For going against shielded enemies, that is no additional damage in that case, and going against enemies that have just health. Now, if we're talking about enemies with just health, then they're almost dead, and they're probably weak, because they're not going to be bosses. Bosses almost always have armor, so they're not really a problem. The key weakness would be shields in this case. So this would be better against shields, this would be better against pretty much everything else. So as long as we're mindful of when and where we are choosing to use Javik, then that should be fine. But again, Javik against shields, generally not a great idea. We're going to use him against shields this time, but it's just to try him out. And hopefully we'll still be okay. So Dark Channel is fully upgraded. As I was saying, this does prime, and it does deal a pretty sizable chunk of damage as well. So that's nice. We have Dark Channel now. What do we want to prioritize next? Vengeful Ancient is his passive. Let's just take a look at what that gives us. Health and shields, power damage, more power damage, or health and shields. Squad mate shield recharge speed, which is actually, we go all the way down here. That's pretty sweet. Or squad mate power damage, duration, and force. So that's kind of tempting. It is kind of tempting. Alternatively, alright, so he has a primer, we should probably give him a detonator of some variety. So maybe we go combination of Slam and Vengeful Ancient. Remember that 21 points is what it costs to fully upgrade something. So if we go all the way down on Slam, then we'll only have 2 points remaining. We can put 1 point into Pull and 1 point into Vengeful Ancient. That way we can at least do something against Guardians. That might be the play. I think that might be the play. So, for the Slams. So, as a reminder, this is an ability that we saw briefly in Mass Effect 2. We got it pretty late on, because we only saw it once we did Miranda's loyalty mission. But deal massive damage to Biotic with a Biotic Body Slam. So, it doesn't give a direct damage number here, because it depends how high up the target gets lifted, and then they get slammed into the ground. So, at the beginning, it's 900 newtons. A little hard to contextualize how much force that is, but it is a lot. And so, recharge speed, we can improve that. We can improve the force. Then, as we're looking to go further down here, we have the option of either radius or more force. So, radius meaning we can hit more enemies, force meaning we deal more damage. Remember, though, anytime we're talking damage directly with the skill, unless it says specifically detonations, it is only affecting the damage directly with the skill. It does not affect the damage from any sort of detonations. So, Slam, I think it does have a brief priming period, because it will lift a target up into the air and then it slams them down. I believe, although it cannot prime detonate itself, I think it can still detonate other things, assuming the target has been primed by some other skill from some other source. But when it comes to our options here, I'm thinking we might go for the radius, because, as I said, the force, yes, directly affects the damage of the direct skill, but just not the explosion. That's going to be our primary way of taking out enemies. And so radius, I believe, means you might be able to detonate numerous enemies with one skill, and that's pretty awesome. So then, detonate damage. As I was saying, if it specifically says detonation damage, then that is the time when it affects detonation damage. If it doesn't say it, just says generic damage, it is not going to affect detonations. And detonations are key. They are key. So for that reason, I mean, I'm pretty tempted to go this route here. The alternative would just be, again, force. So basically, upfront damage versus actual explosions. Let's prioritize the explosions. Then we can stun, incapacitate, slam targets for 5 seconds, so some crowd control basically. Or the recharge speed, improve that by 50%. Then it becomes just 4.5 seconds. That is quite fast. Quite fast indeed. So I'm thinking, given what I was saying earlier about how Javik, I think, is going to be, for the most part, a biotic detonator. Having him be able to use biotics quickly is very important. So I think we go, 50% recharge is lightning fast. So I do like that a lot. Then we only have 2 points left. I think we put 1 in pull, just to be a guardian solution. And then Vengeful Ancient here, just to give a little bit more health shields, a little bit more power damage. I think that's probably what we do, unless we want to go Lift Grenade with 1 level. I mean, that also could certainly be worth a small investment, but either way. Okay, so that's Javik. Now for Edie. So as I was saying, Edie roughly equates to an engineer. So for her, we are, especially on this occasion, we are going to be relying on her pretty heavily to take out shields. And so for her, she does have Overload. She does have Incinerate. These are both abilities we've seen before. Incinerate basically throws a fireball at enemies and is especially powerful against health and armor. Overload, especially good against shields, and since we're talking about shielded enemies, that's going to be our key to success here. Defense Matrix is a new ability we are just seeing for the first time. Let's take a look. Reinforce armor with protective Focult Currents. Purge the currents to restore shields. It is kind of similar to James' Fortification ability in that way. So when it is up, it gives her 15% damage reduction, and then when she purges the shields, when she decides to get rid of them, then she can recharge 50% of her shields. Otherwise, it's just going to be on there passively, and she'll have that 50% damage reduction all the time. But when it is on, much like the Fortification ability for James, it does come with a power recharge time penalty, and in this case, it's 60%, which is pretty steep. So it is a nice ability to have for defensive purposes, especially on higher difficulties. So for that reason, we are definitely going to be interested in trying that out. But I think at least short term, we're probably going to be pretty keen on doing Overload. So for Overload, yes, we've seen it on Garrus before. I don't know if we've looked all the way down the line with him, because I don't think we've upgraded it that highly for him just yet. Let's put a few points into it. So it's basically an electric burst. It only hits one enemy. In Mass Effect 2, it had a small AoE, but that is not the case here. So it is a single target skill. It does come with a very long recharge time, so let's improve that here. Improve the damage. Then we can go either upfront damage, or we can go Chain Overload. This makes it so that it can hit a second target, but when it does so, that second target gets hit with significantly less damage. But Chain Overload, or Overload in general, does have a damage multiplier against shields, so it's still decent against shields, even with that chain. And it does have the chance to stun enemies, and so being able to stun multiple enemies suddenly means it becomes a decent crowd control ability as well. So that is kind of tempting, even if it means we're limiting the damage a bit. I think we want to go this route here. And then we have the option of either recharge speed, making it faster. I mean, again, it is still at almost 13 seconds, so it's pretty slow. Incapacitate weaker organic enemies for a short duration with neural shock or recharge speed. So, talking about stuns, this makes that stun a whole lot longer, turning it into a absolutely full-blown crowd control ability. So, I also think that, technically speaking, it may actually increase the damage against organic enemy. There's some sort of hidden damage multiplier in here that is not obvious, and I'd have to dig up the details on how exactly it does work. It's only in some, or against some specific targets, but it's a little bit hidden. So I think this is definitely the way to go, though, at least for Edie. And then lastly, we have the option of Chain Overload again. So this time, increase the damage by 15%. So this time it's increasing rather than decreasing damage. That's nice, but hit one additional target within 8 meters with 60% less damage. So similar to what we saw with Chain Overload here, though that time it did not come with the additional damage boost. So this just means hit up to 3 targets, and remember, we have all this stunning ability, which is pretty awesome, or deal a whole bunch of extra damage to shields specifically. So basically pure damage against a single target, or damage to a whole bunch of enemies. And I'm a little bit conflicted about this one, because what I'd like for Edie to do is kind of like Javik for biotics. Edie, for tech explosions, can trigger multiple explosions simultaneously with one round of overload when she's chaining this around. So for that reason, having chain overload here as well is kind of nice, because that means you could have 3 tech bursts from just one use of this ability. That's tempting, but then again, we're probably going to be using overload against shields and barriers, and 100% additional damage. Yeah, it's only going to hit 2 targets in this case, but those 2 targets are probably not going to have their shields anymore if we go this route. So, I'm conflicted here. Not entirely sure which direction I want to go. Might even withhold that last upgrade for the time being. Then, other than that, I mean, we could go Defense Matrix, as we were saying, though. It is going to give her a recharge penalty, and Overload right now is a 13-second recharge, which is a little iffy. A little iffy. We also have Decoy. That is also a new skill. Distract opponents with this Decoy. It quite literally creates a copy of Edie, that just a clone, if you will, that distracts enemies, and that clone has 1,000 shields, so I mean, it has functionally the same amount of HP that Edie has right now. So, I mean, that's something. And it also has a duration for 15 seconds, whichever one expires first, the health or the duration. And so if we get 1 point in this, she can do it, which is saying something. Then we can improve the recharge speed, the duration. I mean, I don't think this is going to be one of our higher priorities, but just having it even on a low level in case of emergency to distract some enemies might not be a terrible idea. But I'm thinking we might actually go a little bit more into passives here in that case, because we can go give her some more defenses and power damage. We can give her some more defenses and power damage. Then we can give her some more defenses and power damage, but maybe before we do that, her other key ability is generally going to be Incinerate, because with Overload plus Incinerate, what she can do is Incinerate will prime for fire explosions, and then Overload is capable of detonating those fire explosions. And as we were saying, if we have enough people primed, then we can actually chain Overload and detonate multiple times with this one use of this ability. So that's kind of the name of the game for Edie, I think. So let's look a bit more into Incinerate. And so like we were saying, it's extra damage against health and against armor are the keys for this. So, I mean, it's also, I think, generally going to be a little bit better in just the upfront damage. Again, obviously, Overload has shields and barriers damage multiplier, so that will be better in those circumstances. But it gives Edie a skill for pretty much any situation, which is very nice. So for Edie, as I was saying, I think what we're going to try to do for her is prime numerous enemies simultaneously with a radius Incinerate here, because it is normally just a single target skill unless we get a 2-meter radius. So we go for this, and then we do the chain overload and get numerous fire explosions going off at once. So then we can go either burning damage, increasing that damage by giving us some additional damage over time, or the recharge speed. I mean, recharge speed is kind of slow. It is kind of slow, especially if we're talking about potentially putting on the defense matrix, which slows those things down even more. So I think we do want to go that route. If we're talking about combos, we need that stuff to be happening quickly. Then we have the freeze combo, increase damage to frozen and chill targets by an additional 100%. That is a ton. But we don't have a lot of ways to apply the chill/freeze effect. It is an ammo effect, but don't think we have anyone who knows it right now. So it's just not super easy for us to apply that. And then, or we can go armor damage and just specialize in doing as much damage as possible against armor, and that is already what Incinerate is best at doing, so I think we go that route. Okay, so now we have 5 points left. So we could put a few into Defense Matrix. The thing about it is, at low levels, let's see, with 5 we could just do rank 1 and rank 2. We'd get the damage reduction, we'd get the shields restored when we purge it, but we have the full power recharge speed penalty, which is kind of painful, whereas, you know, once we start getting up the higher durability or the better shields restored and all this stuff, starts to become a little bit more palatable, because, you know, obviously that's a pretty big downside, slowing down the powers, whereas, you know, it's easier to justify it once you have a stronger upside. So I think for that reason, either we save these points, maybe we throw 1 point at Decoy just so we have it, in case we get totally overwhelmed. Why don't we do that? And we could go one more into Unshackled AI for some additional health and shields and power damage. Sure, we'll do that. Okay, so that's Edie, Shepard, and Javik all set up and ready to go. Let's do it.